I've lived in Canada for 13 years and I just got my first Canadian passport. I'm going to be walking you through eligibility, the documents you need, fees, and other tips and tricks that you need to know to make sure that your passport application gets processed the first time. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you live in Canada and you plan on traveling in 2026, one of the first things you're going to need is likely to be a passport. So in this video, I'm going to go over how to apply for a Canadian passport and give you the step-by-step breakdown. So the first key step is determining if you're eligible to apply. In order to be eligible to apply for a Canadian passport, the most important thing is you need to be a Canadian citizen. So permanent residence is not going to cut it, a work permit, study permit, those are not going to work. You need to have your Canadian citizenship in order to apply for a Canadian passport. If you're already a Canadian citizen, then this video is for you. If you're on your journey to becoming a Canadian citizen, I've made another video detailing the Canadian citizenship application process step by step with all that you need to know, and I'm going to link that down in the description below so that you can watch that and that'll help you out. Having determined that you're a Canadian citizen, there's 5 more things you're going to need. You're going to need to fill out the application, you're going to need to pay the fees, you're going to need to get 2 professional passport photographs taken, you're going to need to find 2 references, and you're going to need to find a guarantor. And I'm going to explain a little bit more about each of those things as we go on. You can also get more information on this on the canada.ca site, and it'll go into these things in depth. So here's a look at that. The canada.ca site is going to give you all the important information that you need in terms of applying for a new passport. There's a ton of useful information available on the site, so make sure you check it out. First things first is filling the form, and there's 2 ways you can do it. You can either print it out and write everything in manually, or you can fill it in online and then print the document at the end. To find the application form, go to the canada.ca site again. Click on Get the Application and then scroll down to Download. Once you're in, you can either print this or fill everything in online and then print. Either way works. Just make sure you filled out all the relevant sections. In total, there's 9 of them. At the end of the application form, there's a requirement checklist as well. Make sure all of the requirements have been fulfilled before you complete the form. After completing the application form, before you can submit it, you're going to have to sign it. And another important thing to remember is to make sure that the signature you use on the application matches the signature on whatever your secondary piece of ID is. After completing the application form, the next important piece of information you need are the fees. For a 5-year adult passport, the approximate fee is about $120. For a 10-year adult passport, the approximate fee is about $160. And for a child passport, the approximate fee is about $60. How you pay the fee is going to depend on your preferred means of application. If you decide to mail in the passport, then Section D of the application form is where you can fill out your credit card information so that they can charge your credit card directly when they process your applications. If you plan on submitting the application in person, then you can pay when you go to submit the application. I chose to submit my application at the Service Canada in my area. It was easy, it was convenient, and I could just drop in. Service Canada hours are 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. daily. I was in and out without an appointment in under an hour. Another key benefit for submitting your application in person is that when you get there, one of the agents is going to check your application prior to allowing you to submit it. So if you've made any mistakes, they're going to get you to correct them in that moment so that when you finally submit the application, everything is perfect. If you mail in your application, you don't have that additional check, and if something is wrong with your application, they're going to communicate via email. In-person applications can also be submitted directly at the passport office. However, for this style of in-person application, I would highly recommend booking an appointment before going in because the wait times can be quite long. To book an appointment, navigate back to canada.ca, answer the brief questionnaire about when you need the passport and how you plan to apply, and it'll generate a link to booking an appointment. Follow the link and answer the questions and choose a date and time that's convenient for you. Before you can submit your application form, you need to make sure that your application package is complete, and it can't be complete without photos. There's some very specific requirements on what you need as far as photos, and you can find those on the canada.ca site. I got my photos taken at the local Shoppers Drug Mart. It was easy, it was convenient, it was quick, and it was relatively cheap. There's other places where you can get your photos taken, and examples would be Walmart, Staples, and the UPS store. So you can get your photos taken wherever is most convenient for you. Regardless of where you choose to get your photos taken, make sure that they get stamped by the photographer. On that stamp, it's going to say the studio name, their complete address, the dates that those photos were taken, and your guarantor is also going to need to sign those photos. Once your passport photos are sorted, that brings us to the guarantor and references. Now, these people are similar but have slightly different roles. The guarantor is responsible for verifying the passport application itself. The references are extra contact persons that Passport Canada can contact if they need to find out more about you for whatever reason. That being said, there's some specific guidelines on who can be your guarantor and who can be references, and Canada.ca outlines it very clearly. Your guarantor can be anyone who is 18 years or older, who's known you for at least 2 years, and also is a valid Canadian passport holder. That means they can't have an expired passport. Their passport needs to be valid on the day that you apply. And finally, you're also going to need 2 references. They need to be 18 years or older, have known you for at least 2 years, and they cannot be someone who's in your immediate family or a spouse. And this is important. Your guarantor cannot be one of your references. Likewise, one of your references cannot be your guarantor. In my case, I used my wife as my guarantor, so she verified my application, signed section 2 of the application form, and also signed all of my accompanying documents. That is, the photocopies of my proof of citizenship, the photocopies of my ID, and those 2 passport photos. That meant I needed to find 2 other references who met the criteria. So that's 2 years of knowing me and also Canadian citizens. I ended up asking 2 of my close friends to be my references, and that brings me to another key point. Regardless of who you choose to be your references, make sure that you ask them first and that they're aware that you're putting them down as references, so that if Passport Canada does decide to reach out to them, they're not blindsided and they can give a fair accounting of you. Okay. Application package completed and submitted. Now comes the wait. Processing times are generally between 10 to 20 business days, depending on how you choose to submit your passport. For in-person applications, it's generally between 10 to 20. For mail-in applications, it might be a little longer, usually around 20, maybe 25. A cool thing that Canada has implemented this year is a maximum cap. So if your passport application processing takes longer than 30 business days, once your complete application package is received, they're going to refund you your application fee. Neat, right? And remember, processing time accounts for business days, no weekends included. So make sure you apply for your passport at least 2 to 3 months before the date of your intended travel so that your passport application process is stress-free. Otherwise, it can get a little frantic. Once your passport application is approved, generally speaking, they're going to mail you your application. Usually that's going to your nearest Canada Post. So make sure you're watching out for your Canada Post pickup tags and make sure that as soon as you get that pickup tag, you're off to pick up your passport. Canada Post will hold on to your passport for 15 days before returning it to the passport office. So make sure you pick it up as soon as you can. Once you receive your passport, make sure you check all the information to make sure that it's spelled correctly and it's accurate. If there are any errors or mistakes, make sure you contact your passport office as soon as you can. Make sure that you take digital and physical copies of your passport just in case something happens. And finally, make sure you're putting it in a safe place so you always know where it is when you need to access it. And there you have it. Now you're a Canadian passport holder. Congratulations and welcome to the fam. Let's review some of those key tips and tricks. Make sure that every field of your application form is completed. Make sure your guarantor and your references meet all the requirements necessary. Make sure you use a professional photographer. Don't leave signatures blank. And finally, also keep track of the expiration date on your passport. And there you have it, your complete guide to applying for a Canadian passport in 2026. If you found this video useful, make sure you subscribe for more practical guides like this. And if you have any questions or comments or suggestions for next videos, make sure you drop them down in the comments below. Safe travels, and I'll see you in the next one.